Separation of church and state requires a separation of secular humanism and state too. This is Cogent U, David W. Miller. The ideas of separation in church and state is not a constitutional idea. It's ingrained in our political thought, though. Humanism is not a church, so they claim. Therefore, it's to be exempt from the separation of church and state. That leaves atheism and humanism and secularism with a monopoly on the process in the public political arena and in the public schools. So religion is kicked out and humanism is welcomed in. Now the problem is this. Humanism is a religion. That is to say, it's a belief system. Now, two definitions are very foundational here. What is religion and what is humanism? Now, defining religion is not easy, but it need not include the belief in a God, as a deity is not necessarily a part of Buddhism. Many are surprised to know that a Buddhist can also be an atheist. A religion in its most basic meaning is an organized system of beliefs, a worldview that govern one's life. A religion can be defined as a set of beliefs concerning the cause, nature, purpose of the universe. But belief in a God or gods is not necessary to have a religion. Now, humanism is simply defined as a system of values and beliefs that is based on the idea that people are basically good and that problems can be solved using reason without any deity. A more complete definition of humanism might be an outlook or system of thought that ascribes the importance to humans rather than divine or supernatural matters. Humanist beliefs stress the potential value and goodness of human beings, the emphasis on common human needs, and seek solely rational ways of solving these human problems. Now, this is borne out in recent history as humanists define themselves as a religion without any deity. That humanity alone, apart from any deity, can and must find the answers to all of our problems. Humanism was and still is, in essence, an agnostic, atheistic religion. Now, the British Humanistic Religious Society was formed in 1858 as one of the earliest forerunners of contemporary chartered humanist organizations. Now, note, religious is in the title. In 1930, Charles Potter and his wife published Humanism, a New Religion. The year before, he had founded the First Humanist Society of New York with the impressive advisory board that included John Dewey, Albert Einstein, Julian Huxley, and Thomas Mann. Now, the famous Humanist Manifesto 1, 2 and 3 followed, was published in 1933, declaring the establishment of the new religion of humanism as a major necessity of the present, and listed 15 tenets for this new religion. Now, today, some make a distinction between secular and religious humanists, but there's little practical distinction. As Fred Edwards recently wrote in the American Humanist Association, quote, secular and religious humanists both share the same worldview and the same basic principles. This is made evident by the fact that both secular and religious humanists were among the signers of the Humanist Manifestos. From the standpoint of philosophy alone, there is no difference between the two. It is only in the definition of religion and in the practice of philosophy that religious and secular humanists effectively disagree. Unquote. Just how religious are secular humanists getting? In July 2015, the members of the British Humanist Association, the BHA, gathered in London with the emphasis on humanist ceremonies and what they call pastoral care. Now, head of ceremonies, Isabel Russo, was pleased to show of the increasing popularity of the humanist ceremonies. Get this, of weddings, funerals, naming babies. Head of Pastoral Support, David Savage, announced the BHA has trained over 40 volunteers who can deliver like-minded pastoral care to non-religious people in hospitals and in prisons. And the BHA plans to train at least 60 more in the following year through its pastoral arm. It's called the Humanist Care. Now that sounds rather churchy and religious, doesn't it? This reminds me of the recent growing interest in atheist churches. called Sunday assemblies, where they gather to sing and experience community and talk philosophy with the mission of being good without God, they say. Well, there you have it. Separation of atheist churches and state, along with separation of the religion of humanism and state. Now, what this means is a separation of belief systems. The result being we can't promote any God, and we can't promote the belief system that humanity can solve all its problems without God. That's what's fair. Now, this would silence much of what politicians say today. Public state schools must have this total separation as well. In the Humanist Manifesto 2, John Dumphy famously wrote this, quote, "I am convinced that the battle for mankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom by teachers that correctly perceive their role as proselytizers of a new faith, a religion of humanity. The classroom must and will become an arena of conflict between the old and the new, the rotting corpse of Christianity together with all of its adjacent evils and misery, and the new faith of humanism, resplendent with the promise of a world in which people realize the ideal of a love thy neighbor will finally be achieved." Dumphy has gotten his wish. Many see his dream as more of a nightmare. I mean, look at public education today. Schools indoctrinating the minds in this new religion of humanism. Better discipline with more loving thy neighbor for better learning? Less crime for improved academics? Hardly. The new religion has failed. Time for a separation of that humanism religion and state education. If you hear some atheist, secularist, humanist shout, "Separation of church and state," whenever there's any reference to God or prayer, just graciously remind them of their godless religion. To be fair, we must insist upon the separation of a belief system and state. America should be a free religious market. Humanists should not get a religious monopoly. This is David Ward Miller for Cogent U.